A Hidden Life it tells the true story of a married couple, Blessed Franz Jägerstätter and his wife Francesca, also known as Fanny. Franz was an Austrian farmer and laborer who refused to swear allegiance to Adolf Hitler and serve in the German military during World War II. For this act, he was eventually arrested, was tried, and was executed in August of 1943. He was recognized eventually as a martyr by the church and was beatified in 2007. His wife Fanny and their 3 daughters were there present at his beatification mass, and Fanny died in 2013 at the age of 100. Now, Hidden Life was written and directed by the American director Terrence Malick. As a filmmaker, you don't have too many that have a degree in philosophy, but that's Terrence Malick has that background. His movies are known for making more like meditations on serious topics. The other movies he's directed is the Tree of Life and also A Thin Red Line. The film stars August Diehl as Franz and Valerie Pancher as Fanny. And I have to say, they are amazing in their roles. You just bet your bottom dollar that these people are truly a married couple who are deeply, profoundly committed to one another and to their children. Now, much of the dialogue in this film is voiceovers by the 2 leads, and they're based on letters that Franz and Fanny sent back and forth to one another, particularly during the time of his imprisonment. Now, the film was not promoted as a Christian movie, yet I think it's probably one of the most profoundly Christian movies I've ever seen. It's a great example of one of the most powerful arguments, according to Pope Benedict XVI, is it can be made by the art it creates and the saints that it produces. Some of the things to look for in this film. One, it's set in a time of war, set in the 1940s in Austria, but it's not a war movie. It's more of a meditation about the vocation of marriage and family, and also meditation on how does the Christian respond to the reality of evil. Early in the story, Franz has a discussion with a man that's brought into the parish church to repair some paintings, some actually frescoes. And Franz is told by the painter, he says, "I paint a comfortable Christ." It's an image of Christ that people can look upon and they feel good about themselves, they feel comfortable. They imagine that they would be faithful followers of the Lord, and they would be any of those who opposed him. In reality, this is what the painter tells to Franz, they just simply admire Jesus without seeing the need to follow him. Now, as I watched the story played out, I was able to see it on the big screen. But as I saw the story play out, I realized that Franz and Fanny are painting the real Christ. Not with brushstrokes, not with pen or paper, but with their very lives. And they do so as a married couple. They're the parents of 3 young daughters, and their lives are centered on faith, family, and their local community. They live in a small Austrian village up in the mountains, about approximately 500 people, maybe less. And their vocation, meaning the life that God calls us to in order to fulfill out the promise of our baptism, their vocation as husband and wife is to help each other to grow in faith, to deepen their relationship with God through Jesus, and therefore desire to become saints. Now, it's briefly mentioned in the movie that Franz, before he marries Fanny, he was far from an ideal disciple. He had a reputation as he'd work hard, he drank hard, and he got in lots of fights, especially with law enforcement and with other young men. But once he meets Fanny, his life changes. After they marry, they actually go on a pilgrimage to Rome, which is not part of the story. But after he comes back from that pilgrimage, he is a different man. Now, something else to look for is the whole issue of free will. And it's there also in which Franz and Fanny are painting the real Christ. Because Franz refuses to take the oath of allegiance to Hitler to serve in the German military during World War II when he's going to be drafted. Now, something to keep in mind that in the United States, when a person enters the military or in public service working for the government, you take an oath of allegiance to defend the Constitution. But in Nazi Germany, the oath was a personal oath to Adolf Hitler, whom Franz sees correctly as an antichrist. So he sees what the oath means, as opposed to what maybe some others should don't. It's not just that one can say it on the lips, but not on the heart. He says God has given him the gift of free will, and therefore he cannot cooperate with evil in any form. There's a scene later in the movie in which Franz is before a judge who's overseeing his trial, and he asks him why he refuses to take the oath. And Franz simply states that he cannot do what he believes to be his wrong. And the judge asks him, "Do you believe it's right to do so?" And Franz replies, "Do I have a right not to?" And in these simple words, he explains his loyalty to the real Christ. And to be in harmony with that sacred heart of Jesus. Now, something else to look for is, at least for me as a priest, as I'm watching the film, there is a priest that is in the movie, and the way he's portrayed, I have to be honest with you, made me extremely uncomfortable, pretty much almost squirm in my seat, but maybe not for the reasons you might think. The priest is portrayed as a good man. He's a loving pastor. He wants what's best for Franz and Fanny and for their children, but he urges Franz to take the oath. Basically says, what good is your death going to mean? You have a responsibility to live and to take care of your wife and children. Because Franz is given the option, if he takes the oath, that he can serve as a non-combatant. He can work as a hospital orderly, he can load trucks, something like that. He doesn't have to take up a gun and shoot anybody. But Franz's opposition to the oath has nothing to do apparently so much with pacifism as it does with free will and cooperating with evil. So as I'm watching this play out with the priest, I ask myself, if I was that priest, would I told him anything different? Would I try to convince him what serves the greater good or the common good? Your sacrifice or your survival? Now, historically, what was going on, which is not so much told in the film, is that if you're to be a priest, or even a bishop in Austria, who spoke out against the Nazis, as well as you did this thing in Germany, you get in a lot of trouble fast. In fact, the previous pastor of Franz's and Fanny's parish had been sent to prison because he had publicly spoken out. He condemned the Nazis from the pulpit. That priest that replaces him is in a very delicate position. He's probably like a lot of us in a position like that. You just keep your head down, your mouth shut, and you hope for the best. It makes us feel uncomfortable. And a little bit of a side note, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. We kind of have this idea today that we have to avoid things, ideas, words, things that might make us feel uncomfortable. Well, we have to be careful about that, because if we avoid those things altogether, I think we can fall into a sense of complacency, a spiritual and intellectual laziness. So it's all right to be made feel uncomfortable. In that answer about why is all this happening to Franz and Fanny, it's not the priest who has the answer. It's Franz's father-in-law, who tells his daughter, Franz's wife, he says, better to suffer injustice than to do it. I think it's also one of the quotes that movie to me that stands out. There's also something else to look for is the role of silence in the film. Some movies, and the movie does have a very, very good musical score, but there's some movies in which the music almost becomes like an additional character, kind of drives the story a lot. I think of a movie like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, if you've seen that movie, the bluegrass music. Another more recent movie, Ford versus Ferrari, the music from that time period, kind of sets the stage. Well, there's a lot of silence in A Hidden Life, or just the sounds of nature, the sound of the parish church bell tolling, or ringing out the Angelus, or things like that. So it's kind of, let me put it this way, if you're expecting like Fast and Furious 19 or something, whatever number they're up to now, if you're going to watch this movie, you need to recalibrate your expectations, because it's not an action-packed thing. It's more of a meditation and how this film plays out. One of the best things about this movie is that it brings up some serious moral questions. When Franz refuses to take the oath, his wife and children, they become outcast in this small community. And it's a small community. It's not like you live in a big urban area where you can kind of go and hide and find anonymity. The community turns on them. And with his death, they will become destitute. Is it moral to cause your loved ones to suffer because you stand by your beliefs? And also, what serves the greater good? Does surviving serve the greater good, or does sacrifice serve the greater good? Is self-preservation a sin? How do we know that we're doing God's will in the face of these difficulties? Now, something else about Franz, he never condemns anybody who takes the oath. Nor does he criticize church authorities who don't exactly back him up on this. He shows great humility and also a profound confidence that he is on the right track. Now, to this last question, how do we know when we're doing God's will? Fanny states that she and Franz can only trust that their actions were worth the sacrifice. And she believes that God will reveal the truth to them in heaven. And I think probably rare have there been truer words ever spoken in a movie about faith. It's a long movie. It's almost 3 hours. And again, it's periods of silence or simplicity. So just be prepared that. And much of the story is, like I said, without dialogue, relying on visual images, which, as I said, are quite stunning. And there's a good dialogue that is done as voiceovers between the two main characters. A Hidden Life is rated PG-13. There is some serious thematic content. Also, when Franz is in prison, there are times in which he is beaten and beaten severely. So be aware of that. And also, while the violence of his martyrdom is not portrayed, certainly the story leading up to that is pretty intense. Now, as for the title of the film itself, Hidden Life, comes from a quote from a play by George Eliot, which you see this quote at the very end of the film. And the quote is, "For the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been, is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unmarked tombs." So that hidden life of faith, integrity, love, and mercy within family and community, the world depends on it. And such witness that I think in a lot of ways keeps the world from spinning out of control. Such a hidden life that is in harmony with the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So for next week, I'm going to do a review of the film A Man for All Seasons in 1964. And also tie that in to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So if you like this video, please do so. Hit it with a like on Facebook or on YouTube, and to share and subscribe. It helps the algorithm. So God bless you and keep you safe.